So I want to tell you the story of Summit. This morning I gave you the big ideas and our beliefs and some of the big pieces, but I want to tell you the story. And I hope it's a story that inspires you because we are entrepreneurs and we do very innovative things, but we're also an existing set of public schools that is transforming and changing ourselves. And so I hope you're inspired by that story and that it makes you feel like it's something that you can do. I want you to understand a little bit about our context. And so the first thing I want to tell you is my schools are in California, in the United States. And in California, we educate 1 in every 8 students in America. We're by far, the largest public education system in America, in California. And in California, only 24% of the students who go through our kindergarten through 12th grade education system are even eligible to apply to go to one of our colleges or universities. Only 24%. And as you heard this morning, along the way, 1/3 of the students who started drop out. And they don't even get a high school degree. They don't make it through 12th grade. Now, where I live and where my schools are in Silicon Valley, the percentage is higher. It's about 47% there. But I want you to think about Silicon Valley, and this is where we have Google and Facebook and the world's technology companies. And if you don't have a college degree in Silicon Valley, you're not going to make a living wage. You're not going to be able to buy a home. You're not going to be able to have a family without really, really struggling. And so even in Silicon Valley, there's between 40 and 60% of the students who come to Summit, their families live below the poverty line in America. So they live on an amount of money that's at or below poverty. So even there, where you have all this amazing technology, we have lots and lots of students who are living in poverty and also not making it to college. So that's our context, and I think that many of you live in a very similar context. And so our foundation when we started the Summit Schools 10 years ago was to say we want to reimagine the American public high school, and we want to get fundamentally different results. We don't want 24%, we want 100%. 100% of our students ready for college. And this is a really important concept in the United States, getting students ready for college. And it's what we're all driving for. And that's because there's 2 key things. Number one, if you're ready for college and the skills you need, you're probably also ready for many careers. And so those 2 things are similar. And number 2, as you probably know, the U.S. is having very difficult economic times right now. And the data is very clear that the people who have a college degree can still find work and are doing okay. But if you didn't achieve a college degree, and worse, if you don't have a high school degree, you are unemployed at rates significantly greater than people with college degrees. And your opportunities are significantly lower. And so for those of us who are in public schools, we believe we have to give kids the opportunity to go to college. And it's our job to get them ready for that. And so, just started going ahead. And so when we set out to reimagine American high schools 10 years ago, there were some key principles, and you heard these from High Tech High this morning. Number one, we wanted our students to represent our communities that we're in, to look the same as the communities socioeconomically, racially, linguistically. We wanted them to be representative of the communities that they're in, number one. And we have very diverse communities. Number 2, we wanted every student to have access to a very rigorous college preparatory curriculum that would get them ready for college. The number 1 reason students aren't ready for college, they didn't take the classes. They did not take the courses that they needed to get ready. The third piece is that we felt like we have to have high expectations for every student, that we have to believe that they're all capable, And then we have to balance that with very high systems of support so that they really can be capable. As you heard this morning, we have a really deep focus on college and career exploration and exploring your passions and interests in life. And finally, like I said, our mission is to prepare every single one of our students for college and career and to be contributing members in our society. So for 10 years we've been doing this. And that means that we have 6 groups of students, almost 7 in one more month, 7 groups of students who've graduated from our schools after being there for 4 years. And 100% of our graduates have been eligible to apply to college, 100%. 96% of them have been accepted to at least one, if not many more, 4-year colleges and universities in the United States. And this is a statistic you don't see or hear many places, but we're tracking this. In the U.S., believe it or not, there's no way to track how students do in college. Can you believe it? We don't have data on that. But we follow every single one of our students on Facebook. And 55% of our students are earning a 4-year college degree. And you might say 55% because that's what we say. What I can tell you is that's double the national average in America. And what I want you to know about the national average is they start counting with the 24% who were ready for college. So only about 25% of that original 24% actually earn a 4-year degree. So we're at 100% and then 55% of those. So pretty good, right? And a lot of people said, oh, great, you're good, just keep going. But what we said is that's not good enough. And all those pictures I showed you of our kids, we know every single one of them. And we said we have to get to 100%. And so a couple of years ago, when we started seeing this data, we took a really hard look at what we could do with our students to get to 100%. And we looked at our organization and our schools and at the research and universities and foundations, and we looked across the country. And here's what we found. Number one, when students go to college, if they have to take any sort of remedial courses, that automatically means they're going to have a significantly harder time getting a degree. And so when you unpack that, what that means is if students don't have a good solid grasp of all the little bits of learning that you saw so many maps this morning, right, that show all those bits of learning, if they don't have all of those when they go to college, they're going to struggle. And most students don't. They have big holes in their knowledge and learning. And so even our students had holes, and we had to fill them, number one. And then the second piece was that high support that we were offering to students. All of these supports, we have after school and mentors and tutors and all sorts of supports. What we discovered is that wasn't actually, when the students left us to go to college and into life and the supports were gone, they started to struggle. And we had not built in them their own skills to support themselves going forward. So those were our 2 big findings that we had. And like I said, we looked out and saw the research. And then the second piece is 10 years ago, much of the technology we talked about this morning did not exist. And every single day, new technology becomes available that we're going to talk about in a minute that did not exist. And so what we're discovering is things we've wanted to do now are possible because of the new technology that's become available. And so, like I said this morning, we decided to rethink the whole experience. And so here are the key pillars of rethinking our new school experience. And the first I spoke at length this morning. It's about being self-directed and empowering students in their own learning. The second is to provide even more opportunities for these really deeper skill developments across the curriculum. So moving away from separate science, separate English, separate history, into a more integrated, authentic approach. The third is to make possible even more real-world experiences that allow our students to explore their passions and interests. To attack that deficit where students have holes in their knowledge by ensuring that they all have a personal pathway where they can really move through what we call competency-based progression. So they're becoming competent at all of those pieces of learning as they go. And then finally, always incredibly important to our school is the community, and to foster a sense of belonging and a sense of connection and a community, a learning community that works together. And so those are the key principles for our vision and our remodeled school. As you saw this morning, it's centered around this, this cycle of self-directed learning that while it seems very basic and obvious, this is not what students naturally do. What we discovered is only about 20% of our high school students come to us, and this is somewhat natural and intuitive for them. The rest of them, we have to teach this to. And the big pieces that are missing, students can set goals, they can throw things out there, but what they don't do is create a disciplined plan of how to achieve those goals. And this is a really crucial step that gets missed. And then we control how students learn in our traditional schools, and we tell them when and how they're going to show what they know. And so a big piece of this self-directed cycle is giving them lots of choice in how they learn and letting them show us what they know on demand, whenever they're ready to show us. Okay? And then, of course, reflection is always a key part of being a learner, and we find this does not come naturally to most students. This has to be practiced and taught. So, I showed you this morning the elements of our school day, and so now I want to go into a little bit more detail around them. So we're going to talk about the pieces of the day, this core time, the personalized learning time, and the community time in a little bit more detail. And so let me start with the core time. The core time is, and you're going to hear a lot about this from High Tech High because it's a very similar approach. It's a project-based approach to learning. And what's important to understand about the projects is that the learning really happens in the doing of the project. And this is different from sometimes the way we do projects in traditional schools. And one way to think about it is projects are often assigned as what we would call dessert. So you have your main meal, and that's the teacher maybe lecturing or teaching and doing all the learning. And then a teacher will say, oh, for dessert, for the sweet, we'll give you a project to do. And, you know, make a pretty poster. But there's no learning. It's not learning, and it's supposed to show what you're learning, but it doesn't really give students the opportunity to learn in the process and to authentically show what they're learning. And so we think of projects as the main course, and that's a really important piece to understand. Projects is the main course where the learning is really happening, number one. And number two, where they're really, really focused on practicing those cognitive skills, so the deep skills. And they need to bring the content knowledge with them and apply it in the project, but that's not where they're learning the content knowledge. They need to bring that with them, and we'll show you how they do that in a moment and how it connects. And so some examples of these deeper type of projects are, you know, a persuasive speech or big research papers where kids are bringing these big skills together, science labs or engineering activities or things where you're making things, okay? We want the students to work in groups. They all produce their own product, but they do a lot of collaboration with their peers on the project. This is really important. And notice they're in heterogeneous groups. So we don't say, oh, all the kids who are really good at this go in this group, and the kids who are not good go in this group, because that's actually not how you value the skills and learn from each other. So the groups are very mixed and heterogeneous. I mentioned the Common Core this morning. This is the national standards the United States is just adopting, and they have two parts to them. One part is about the content knowledge, but the other part are about these skills, these cognitive skills that are consistent. And so we're really focused on those big cognitive skills here. And finally, they have what we call understand and apply assessments attached to them. And so this is multiple methods of assessment, and I'm going to show you the platform we use to do that in a moment, so I'll hold on that. So a companion piece to this core time is what we call the personalized learning time. And I said the students need to bring their content knowledge with them to the projects. But you know, it's really hard to motivate students to learn how to do a quadratic equation just because you tell them, oh, you need to do the quadratic equation. And they say, why? I've never seen anyone do a quadratic equation ever in my life. Why do I need to know that? And so the motivation to get them to do that is very difficult. And we can try to use incentives and games and, you know, inspiring teachers, and that will work to some extent. But we find works better is to assign the students a project and say, you know, there's 3 key pieces of content knowledge you need to do this project well. And one of them might be the quadratic function. And so they learn their content in service to their project. And the way they learn it is very personalized. So when you assign a project, you might have 4 students in a group and 3 concepts, and 3 of the 4 students might know one of the concepts, and that one might know 2, and you might know another one. And so rather than make them all do all of those things, we give them pre-assessments, we know who knows what. And so we say, just focus on the ones you don't know that you're going to bring to the project. And the way we do that is through this competency-based progression. So we know what all the students know at all those discrete levels. They have their own map that shows them that. And then we give them a playlist for every piece of content knowledge they don't know. And I'll show you the platform for this in a moment. And they work through the playlist, and they have a lot of choice there. And so that's what happens in the personalized learning time. And then they can show what they know on what we call a no-do assessment. And these are all multiple choice. This content knowledge can really be assessed fairly effectively through multiple choice assessments, and we can get to the heart of if they've become competent there. So those are 2 big pieces of the day. And then there's the expeditions. And I said there's 2 months of the year where students are engaged in the expeditions. And so, like we talked about this morning, these are real-world, authentic experiences that take multiple skills and happen out in the world, generally outside of the school walls. And they're designed for students to explore their interests and passions. And so we spend a lot of time asking the kids, what do you care about? What are you interested in? What do you want to do? And mining all of that data that we have and talking to them about it. And then designing expeditions that serve those interests. And there are 5 big themes for our expeditions that these things fall under. One is around cultural appreciation. So it's very broad. It's all the arts. It's all the culture. It's everything. Second is around college readiness and what it takes to actually be ready to go to college. Third is preparation for their career of their interests. Their own personal health and wellness. And then finally, being a contributing member of our community, having a purpose. Understanding that your learning is connected to a higher purpose and something you're going to do with it. And what's key about the expeditions is at the end, it's not just fun for 2 weeks, although kids think that. They are required to publish and publicly present the culmination of their work. But it's really authentic. And so like I said this morning, it's something that is connected to whatever they were doing. So like it could be an exhibition, it could be a community forum that they lead, it could be that they've built a house for a family through Habitat for Humanity. And that's what they're showing as their publicly presentable piece of work. And we facilitate this process with a whole bunch of partnerships in our community. And here's something really important that we discovered when we started doing this work, is that there are so many organizations in our community that are designed to serve students when they're outside of school. So in the afternoon, in the evening, and on the weekend, because that's when the students are available if you're not at school. And so when we came to them and approached these organizations and said, would you work with us for 2 months a year during the school day, they thought it was the best thing because they could use their facilities during a time when they're not getting used. They could engage their teachers and their professors and their workers at a time when they're not being accessed. And they could generate some additional revenue that wouldn't be available to them and have a meaningful partnership. And so we've had incredible success with partnering with the community in a really authentic way that's mutually beneficial. And then finally, the community time. This is being remodeled. We've been calling it Connections for many years, and we're moving it to be a community time. And so I mentioned earlier that every one of our faculty members serves as a mentor for a group of students, about 18 students, and they stay with them for their whole time that they're in the school. And this mentor is the adult advocate for the student. They're the direct liaison with the family. They are the one who help and sit with the student to think about the personalized learning plan, and they regularly check in on the goals. And so there's a time built into every day where that mentor gets together with their student and the group of students, and they almost become a family. They're this very tight community that comes together. And this is where we really focus on practicing those non-cognitive skills. And we model them, and we discuss them, and we give each other feedback in a very safe space. And we have a lot of rituals about what we value and what we honor, and we do that in this time, and we bring the community together. And so that is the community space. And it's really focused and centered around knowing that if students feel that they belong, and this is something that the research is showing very clearly in America, students who enter college or even high school, and in the first 3 weeks say, I don't think I belong here, are far less likely to actually make it through. And what's central to actually feeling that you belong is connecting not only with your professors or teachers, but with your community and your peers who are there. And so we really try to facilitate and foster that sense of belonging in the community time. I showed you the trajectory tool this morning, and so this is an actual student interface that the kids have and see on their computers that gives them their detailed information. And this is sort of the big high level, and then it drills down into the individual places. And so I want to talk about some of those individual pieces. The first is what's called the Activate Instruction platform. And it is what houses our playlists for that personalized learning time. And the second one is Show Evidence, and it's the platform that houses our core projects. So we'll talk about that. And then a personalized math guide, and I actually don't have a picture of that up here, but I can tell you about that. So let me tell you about Activate Instruction. Activate Instruction is a product that we as a school have been co-designing with a technology company. And we've received funding from a foundation to do this. And it's a platform that's free to everyone. It will be released to the world in September. We've been working on it for about 18 months. And what it does is it allows individual teachers or schools or school districts to create playlists. So how many of you have some sort of music device, an iPod or something, where you have a list of your songs? And anyone have that? Yes? Okay. And you know you can go out to the iTunes store or online and you can have all the songs in the world available to you. And you can bring them in onto your device and you can organize them in playlists, right? You can have your, workout playlist with all of your songs, and you can have your relax playlist or your, nice dinner playlist. So you organize them around your themes, but you have all those resources available. So this is the same idea that we wanted for students. We wanted to be able to curate the best of what's existing in the world into a place around a single idea or topic or theme. And so for every single piece of knowledge our students need to learn, that's what we've done. We've brought the best of all that's on the web, as well as everything our teachers have developed. So one of the drawbacks we found to other systems was you could only get whatever that system created. So they say, here's everything to learn quadratic functions. And we would say, but our teachers have really great work on that they developed that we want to add in there too. Oh, sorry, you can't do that. And so we've built a platform where teachers actually have control, where you have access to all of those pieces, but you can curate them how you want, and then you can add all of your own pieces. So you can put your best lessons up there, you can put videos, you can put whatever you want up there onto the playlist. And then the kids get to choose from the playlist. So when they set their plan for learning, they don't have to do all the things on the playlist, and they don't have to do them in order. They actually pick the ones that work best for them. So for example, some of our students, you probably know the Khan Academy. Some of our students say, you know, I love the Khan Academy, and so I like to do those problems. That's how I learn my math best. But I don't like watching the video, so I just want to do the problems and get the hints. Or I want to do my teacher's worksheet. Or some of them say, I really like to read the textbook first, because I want to understand, and then I want to do practice problems. So they start to learn about themselves and how they learn best. And they get to pick and make a plan. And then, when they're finished making their plan, they start to learn. And they have a lot of control over it. We ask them to, just like if they're on any other online platform, rate how those activities work for them. Did you learn from that? Was it interesting? What did you like about it? And we gather all of that data together. And we put a rating system on there. So just the same way they do on, you know, Facebook, they give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We collect that data, and then they can use that as they go and make their choices. We don't tell them how long or what they have to do. What we say is, when you're ready to show us what you know, tell us. Just raise your hand and you can take a test and show us. So they can take the assessment whenever they like. And then they can, if they pass and are competent, they just move on. If they're not, it tells them what they missed and what they need to go learn again. It gives them immediate feedback within 2 seconds. They literally take the test online, and 2 seconds later they know how they've done. And I'll tell you a story. When we first implemented the system, I was there in the room watching, and the first student took the assessment, and I was watching, and he didn't pass. And so he stood up, and he started to walk out, and I said, wait, what happened? He said, well, I didn't pass. And I said, oh, so what's going to happen? Does a teacher need to sit with you and work with you and tell you what to do? He says, no. Looked at me, he said, no, I need to go back to my playlist and figure out how to learn this before the end of the period so I can come back and pass it. He just pushed past me and went to learn. I thought, okay, well, there you have it. Get out of the way and let the students do what they need to do, right? So that's our Activate system. And you can see the students just drive that. So this system is designed for what we call the know and do. And so think about writing in 2 pieces. Number 1, there's writing a big essay, right? We're about to get to that. It doesn't do that one. But there are elements of learning how to write, you know, noun and verb agreement, or the elements of grammar, or vocabulary words, or all those sort of discrete pieces. And that's what this system does well. And that's what a lot of online systems do well, is really enable kids to learn those things quickly. And so we've purposely pulled those apart and said, let this system do what it does well, and then we'll put the writing the big essays in the other piece. So the next piece I want to show you then is, and what I want to tell you about that platform and everything we're doing, again, free to the whole world, forever, in perpetuity. You would have to translate it, probably, but you're welcome to do that. And it's a community of teachers, because every single teacher who puts something into the system, it's shared. And so when you go in, if you use this in the fall, you're going to find 50,000 resources that my teachers have already curated and created and put on to the platform. And you can add your own, you can mix them around, you can do whatever you want with them. So the second platform is Show Evidence. This is not something we developed. It's been developed by a large foundation in America. It's just become publicly available. And I'll tell you, as a former writing teacher, when I saw this, I cried. I was so excited. It's so amazing. It's what I've been waiting for my whole teaching career. And so what it does in a very beautiful format, it allows you as a teacher to put your whole project or your whole assignment in an online environment. So I don't know, how many of you are teachers? Yeah, and so you know when you make an assignment, a big assignment, you maybe have all these different handouts and directions, and then you want to show a video clip, and then you want to maybe, give a page from here, and you want to bring all this learning experience together. And this platform allows you to put it all in an online environment where very easily, very beautifully, where kids always have access to it in a single place. And then as they move through that learning experience, they need to submit their work. And so it very easily allows for students to submit work from all different programs and platforms. I'm showing you an essay that was submitted, but students can submit video. So for example, if they were giving a speech or a discussion, you can videotape it and submit the video. You can take pictures of things, and so for example, if they did a project, you can load the project up there. All different formats, PDFs, Word docs, Google Docs, anything. And so what happens then as a teacher is I have put my rubric for how I would assess an essay, because it's not a multiple choice, right? It's a rubric. And so I've put my rubric into the system. And so for our schools, we have one giant rubric for the whole school for all of our cognitive skills. So we say, problem solving is the same across all the subjects. Writing an effective thesis is the same across all subjects. We have one giant rubric that's done. And then what we do is we create what are called indicators or look-fors. What are you looking for as evidence? We talked about evidence this morning. That the student actually developed an idea or wrote an effective thesis or whatever you're looking for. And so as a teacher, I can very quickly and very easily take this submission, and I use either highlighting or a box or a pin. I can use whatever I want, and I can just, when I see evidence of something, I just highlight it, or I box it, or I drop a pin there. If I want to, I can leave a comment for the student. I can record it. I can just talk to them, and it embeds right in there. Or I can type it really quickly. No more red pens. Red pens are going to live a very long life. We don't need to use them anymore. And I go through the whole piece, and I just look for the evidence. Okay? And then when I get to the end, it is automatically, for me, told me how many pieces of evidence I found and to what degree they were on my rubric, because my look-fors were attached to that. And it shows me, based on this is how the student's doing in these very key skills. This is the evidence we see. And that translates to a way we can give feedback to the students automatically that says, here's how you did, here's where your scores are on this rubric, and then we tell them, you need to be at this level on these skills to move forward. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that awesome? If you've ever graded a paper, you know how you sit at the end and you're like, oh, what's the grade and what's the score and how's this add up? It's very data-driven. It's very clear. Here's the better part. How many of you are administrators or run schools or do professional development? Anyone like that? Okay. So every project, every piece of work that's in this, it keeps a digital portfolio for students. So we have all their pieces. Because we use the same rubric, we see how they perform in different subjects and over different years. We can keep all of that. We can watch their growth on these performance tasks. We can see where they have holes, and we can go back and fill those holes in if they're missing a piece of it. We can also have multiple graders. So you can have a student assess themselves, and a peer, and a teacher, or multiple teachers. You can use this for professional development, where you can have teachers calibrate their assessment, and they can all assess the same thing on the system. It will show you the differences. It will show you how different classes performed against other classes. It has all of this data that's easily accessible that we can actually do something with as a system. Right now in our schools, when teachers grade, usually those grades live in grade books. and they're one single score or grade. And it's not data that's useful, and it doesn't give us feedback or help us drive learning for kids. And so this is an incredibly powerful platform and system that makes time much more efficient for teachers. You can also submit multiple drafts. So once I make comments, kids can just literally go back and just edit a piece of it or improve it and keep it. So with the last few minutes, what I want to talk about and introduce to you is this idea of a lean startup. And there's this book in America called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. And it started with technology companies. And lean startup is a way that you actually rapidly iterate on your product in order to get to a better product faster. And so most people wouldn't think that that was applicable in education. Because in education, what we tend to do is we try something for a whole year. And then at the end of the year, we think, oh, did that work or not? We usually don't use data, and then if we liked it, maybe we keep it, or if we didn't, we don't. But we're not thoughtful about that. And this is not a way to reinvent or to iterate or to innovate, okay? And so one of the things we did as an organization was adopt the principles of a lean startup and to become very, very disciplined about how we actually improve our practice and our work and our model through rapid iteration and lean startup principles. And the basic idea is that you design something based on what you know, but you design it very quickly. You don't plan for a year or two like we normally do. You plan very quickly. And then you build it very quickly. A minimal viable product. You saw that today with the games, the paper-based games, right? Like, you can't go engineer a whole game on a software platform if you don't even know it's good. You have to make a paper one and test it and then learn from it, and then eventually you get to the software platform once you've tested it and built it and iterated. So you build it very quickly, you test it, and you don't test it with your entire system. You test it with a small group very quickly, and you get feedback from that. And then you iterate on that, and you use that feedback in very short cycles. We literally meet weekly and iterate on a weekly basis. A weekly basis right now, using the data and information we gather. And then you repeat that, and you learn from that, and you very, very quickly make a better product. And so this is how we approach this. So rather than waiting for some perfect solution to come, we just start. We build what we know, we learn from it, and we rapidly iterate. And I think this is a really key concept, because if we think we're going to innovate in education on our traditional time schedule of year-long tests, we're never going to get there, or at least not while I'm alive. And so we've got to adopt a lean startup mentality. I think that's it for now. Yeah.